So like I think it was really interesting how they had like the principal and a psychologist and a counselor, and there was like a really clear level of respect, and like he was being treated like a whole individual, as like a person who has rights and deserves equal like respect.
And a lot of love, right? A lot. I mean, the word love gets used. I don't know how many of you got told you were loved in the school environment. Probably not so much, but it's a very warm, nurturing, very respectful environment. Yes, ma'am.
Going off of what she said, I this semester started mentoring at the New Brunswick Middle School.
New Brunswick Middle School?
Yeah, I mentor there in the mornings, and I think like it's important to, like she said, like give the students like humanity again, because I think once they go into schools, they feel more like they're like letters and a GPA and whatever like coursework they have. So like I am supposed to be more of a tutor than a mentor, but I personally have taken the responsibility of just being somebody who like asked them like, how was your morning when you got to school? How are you feeling about certain teachers or whatever the case might be, to kind of like remind them that they're not just students, but that there's like complexities, and that somebody is actually like considering the issues that are helping or hurting them in school. And so like I resonated with what they were talking to the gentleman about, because I think like in order for students to actually properly behave in schools, you need to restore that sense of humanity, because they're not going to be inclined to respect somebody who's just like minimizing them to coursework.
And punish them.
Yeah.
Just punishing them for, because there's no, like you said, there's no trust. Right. Did anybody, oh yeah, go ahead.
I thought it was really nice that the principal was like, I'm here to ensure that you're gonna get your diploma and move on with your life, because I feel like at my school it was like, oh, well, if you keep doing this, you're never gonna graduate. Like, if you keep getting suspended,
Negative
you keep doing this. Yeah.
Negative, which
So it was
doesn't
like
work.
really nice that she was like, I'm gonna ensure that like you do this, like you move on with your life. So I thought that was nice.
So in this room are, as you pointed out, you know, some religious leaders from the community, counselors, these parents. Man, this is a whole lot of adults taking a chunk of their day for this kid, right? What is that, just that fact, what does that communicate to the student?
Care about it.
Yeah, he's important, we care about you. It also means that this is really labor intensive. Like, can you envision this in your school? Can you imagine like all the, you know, the superintendent, the principal, the vice principal shows up and we have a circle. It's gotta be something pretty major, right? You're not gonna do this every time someone's tardy, certainly. It's gotta be something serious, but it's a big commitment for the district. Yes, sir?
Actually, like, I really like the technique, but I feel like it's really hard to implement.
Because it's so intensive?
Yeah, I grew up in Philly, so, the school district there, so I went to a charter school, in elementary school, so like I experienced some of those, like,
What I was
policies.
describing, yeah.
And when I got to high school, there's like a lot of things that affect high school students, especially in Philly. And
No funding is a big one.
There's not enough
No
funding.
counselors, no nurses.
So,
It's a little better now,
yeah.
but it's still outrageous.
You would get one counselor to like
Yeah.
2,000 kids.
Yeah.
and
There are more schools with police officers than counselors nationally. How depressing is that, right? Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's fine. And I feel like if there were more counselors or if there were more resources or opportunities
Right.
for these students to, I guess, to be heard
Yes,
or to have someone actually care.
Connect
about-
with someone.
Connect with them. I feel like there's a lot of disconnect and there's not enough empathy, especially in like hard situations that come up, especially in adolescence.
So we only had an hour and a half, so I didn't bring in all this stuff about school funding and segregation, because sometimes, which all gets into this. One of the reasons why you have, you know, schools with police officers more concentrated in high poverty districts is we segregate by income in our schools, because we have residential segregation. And so all the problems that poverty brings, you know, broken families, lack of stability, right, if your family is moving around, maybe homelessness, lack of nutrition, I mean, you can think of, there's many, many things, lack of health care. They're concentrated in specific schools. And when you get to a certain point, when you have enough kids who are low income, it becomes extremely difficult to give them a good education, just because you're dealing with all the trauma in their lives. So one of the main things you can do to improve public education is to desegregate our schools, so you don't concentrate all the challenges in the same school system. The other thing you can do is provide resources. And so Philly is both concentrated, segregated, and underfunded. So it's like sort of the epitome of what you don't do to public education, and then of course you get this exacerbation of all these issues. So yes, sir.
Yeah, so I went to international school like abroad, but then it's like an American school system, and on paper it's like they pressure out. But then a lot of the teachers, like if you misbehave, they'll pull you out and then be like, hey, like what's going on? Like what can I do to help you? But then there's also teachers that's like come see me like during lunch or like, and then he'll make you write a like letter of apology, and like it kind of like contrasts because like everyone hates the teachers who kind of like gives you detention, and then like it's just like it just festers a lot of like anger in the students towards those teachers, and then all the students just really like the teachers who kind of take their time out of the day to like kind of talk to you, and then like if you need any help, there's also the counselor that you can go to. So like it kind of reflects on like how the students kind of respond to the type of reinforcement.
Right, negative reinforcement, again, the literature, negative reinforcement doesn't work. Having somebody chew you out does not make you a happy person. It doesn't make you want to please them. It makes you hate them, right? And if you hate them, you're not connecting with them. We know this. It's not like a trial thing. We're not still checking it out. You're absolutely right. Positive reinforcement, the person opens up. So somebody, I think you mentioned that this is really hard to do. It is really hard to do. It's very labor intensive. The other thing that happens is you got to train everybody in the school. Like there has to be buy-in from the bottom to the top. And if the top isn't really serious, if all they do is send 5 teachers to a weekend seminar on restorative justice, it ain't happening, right? They have to really commit to this, and it has to be ongoing training, and it has to come from the top. Otherwise, it becomes like a Dilbert cartoon. It's like next, right? The next, whatever the next thing that you guys know Dilbert, right? I'm not that old. Okay, good. So I am that old actually, but you still know Dilbert. So you've got to really implement it sincerely. You get resistance. Teachers will resist this. Often they'll resist it because they don't understand it, or they're not comfortable with it, or because they feel like they lose control of their classroom, right? And so they're used to that old technique. So it takes a concerted effort to make this happen. And I just want to go through a couple more things, and we're almost done since we started with the idea of public policy, right? So we talked about how this problem of high use of suspensions and expulsions and all the destruction that it brings came from public policy. Gun-Free Schools Act of 1994, zero tolerance school discipline policies, the criminal justice system policies, the lack of gun control that led to things like Columbine, continuing the policy thread. In 2014, the Obama administration issued guidance to public schools. They said, look, these suspension rates, these expulsion rates are really high, and they're disparately applied to kids of color and to disabled kids, and we want you to really take a hard look at what you're doing as schools and stop it. And if you don't stop it, we're gonna bring you up on civil rights actions, because your disparate impact is a legitimate reason for us to question what you're doing. Like black kids aren't misbehaving at higher rates. There's no reason why they should be suspended at higher rates. And so it actually was pretty effective. More than 50 of the country's largest school districts instituted discipline reform. A bunch of states revised laws to reduce suspensions and expulsions. It put a lot of focus on that. And what we're seeing with the most recent data is that suspensions are actually down a little bit. It's still pretty high, but it went from 5.6 to 4.7% most recently.